Thank you, Danielle. And this is Peter Smerud, although I am having computer issues, so I'm on my phone. It's entitled Wolfridge Naturalist. That is me. This is me. Welcome, everyone, to the 50th Speaker Series. My name is Peter Smerud. I'm the Executive Director here at Wolfridge Environmental Learning Center. We're excited to have you here today. This is one of our favorite subjects, as you might imagine, being all folks here who live on the North Shore. And as I look through some of the attendees today, I know there are others on Zoom today that are North Shore residents, cabin owners, biologists, school teachers that have brought children to Wolfridge over the years. Just scrolling through the names, I know there's lots of folks that feel a real endeared connection to Wolfridge, but also to the North Shore. This is another one in our series of Zoom events where we, during COVID, could gather in this manner, and we've kept it going to celebrate what will be here in about a month. Will be actually 50 years from September of 2021. 50 years previous is when Wolfridge first opened our doors. It was in late September of 1971 that the first schools came up to Isabella, Minnesota, to, at the time, the Environmental Learning Center, what later became Wolfridge Environmental Learning Center. And so this is a joy to have such a great subject today here in this beautiful and up here rather cool August day. And we are focused today at both the landscape and the land, but also from the water. We have a unique condition that I'll let you see as it comes out, that we won't just be on, when Danielle used the phrase, on Lake Superior. Today, we will have staff actually on Lake Superior as we learn about this great lake. I want to say thank you to a couple of sponsors here that have made this Zoom event possible. The Galen Harms of Fortune Financial and Scott Gislason of the North Star Resource Group are both people and organizations that have sponsored this 50th Speaker Series. It wouldn't be possible without Scott and Galen's support. Thank you very much, you two. Again, Fortune Financial and North Star Resource Group are our sponsors today and for this series. I want to give a quick update that Wolfridge has been operating all summer. We've been at a little low capacity. It's been busy, but it's been busy for us as we just still are at a relatively small staff and we're building up quickly. And that our summer has gone very well. And we chose to go at it this summer in a very limited way. There was no youth summer camp. There's a few other programs we did not do, but we've had some fabulous family programs. We've had some family reunions. We have had some other youth groups. We have a SEEK program going on right now with some youth that are high school students that are doing career work in natural resource careers or environmental science careers and getting high school academic credit for it. They are here from Como Park High School this week and next week. Actually, they left for the Boundary Waters this morning, I believe, and out there with their science teacher doing that work. We are planning on a full reopening September 13th. That is the date when schools are returning to Wolfridge, and we plan to be, hoping COVID doesn't throw us a wrench here in things, we plan to be open at full occupancy by then. So that's a very exciting time for us as we build up. And we are fully masked now indoors, unless you're in your private office like Danielle. And if that's all the restrictions we have, we're going to be good to go. And yet we will adapt as we have throughout the last 18 months. And we're looking forward to a great year. Back to today, I am happy to introduce our host today, Tom Berg, who is a Lake Superior guy in his heart and soul and is deeply connected to Wolfridge through his work on our board and with a special focus to our property that we have acquired down on Lake Superior. I'll let him talk more about that, but I now want to introduce our host today, Tom Berg.
Thank you, Pete. I'm hoping all the microphones are working as they're supposed to and all. I am Tom Berg. I am fortunate to be a trustee emeritus of the Wolfridge Board of Trustees and have been in and around Wolfridge and the board for almost 17 years now, and am very excited, as Pete mentioned, about these possibilities for some new land we have acquired on Lake Superior. It is 68 acres of wonderful land. We have a small parking area for school buses right up near the road with a yurt there for students and teachers and groups can gather, a toilet there, and then they will walk down a small and carefully designed road and over a bridge over a creek to get down to Lake Superior. And we're going to hear about that Lake Superior today and fresh water. And we're going to hear about some sailing, and we're going to hear about watersheds, and we're going to hear about weather and the impact of all of that on nature and all of us. And this fresh water has never been more important, in my view, than it is now. And as evidence of that, I'm going to just tell you very briefly about something that happened on Earth Day this year. The United States Supreme Court issued a decision, and there's a one-sentence summary of it I'm going to read to you. It says it all, I think. Florida failed to prove by clear and convincing evidence that Georgia's overconsumption of interstate waters injured it. And so Florida was not entitled to a Supreme Court order requiring Georgia to reduce its water consumption. And if that doesn't show you that the water wars are here and fresh water is a very serious business, I don't think anything does. So it's a critical resources, and it is up to us, I think, to try to educate our kids and all of us, particularly those of us who live around the boundaries of the shore of the greatest of the Great Lakes, about the importance of fresh water and how we take care of it. The Lake Superior and its shoreline has always had a certain magnetism to me, and I think almost everybody. And it has a magnetism and some inspirational value that can be put to good use. And today we're going to have a little glimpse of how these qualities can be used to teach about the importance of fresh water to everyone. Pete Smerud, when he was interviewed a while back for a nice story we got in the Star Tribune, said that every child should have a little bit of Lake Superior in their heart. And I think that says it very well, and why we're all so excited about this land that we have and are being very carefully how we implement all this to use it to teach and inspire other people. So I want to say a thank you to one, a very generous landowner who made all of this possible on a fairly complicated land transaction. And secondly, thanks to the many, many hundreds of donors who have given substantial sums of money to Wolf Ridge through our Making Waves campaign to make all of this possible. And thirdly, to the Wolf Ridge staff and the Wolf Ridge board who have worked on this project for many, many years to bring it to fruition. And we're going to see now what three talented naturalists, Peter Harris, Danielle, and Joe Walewski here, can do with this magnificent resource. So thank you all for coming. It's my pleasure to be the host. And Danielle, back to you.
Thank you, Tom, very much. So hello, everybody. My name is Danielle Hefferan, and I am the Naturalist Training and Curriculum Coordinator here at Wolf Ridge. It's fun. I had to beef up on all my Zoom skills again, because we've actually been doing a lot of in-person programming outdoors with families this summer. So it was a welcomed thing to have to get on Zoom early and practice. Wait, how do I share my screen again? Because we did a lot of that all this last year. I'm sure you all know that as well. So I want to take a moment to introduce a little bit of the place that we are going to focus on today, Lake Superior. So indeed, let me share my screen with you. All right. So for those of you who are joining from all over the place, just a little grounding so that you see where we are. That red star on the map is generally where Joe, Peter, and myself are all located today. We'll get to hear a little bit more from Peter and Joe about specifically where they are. But to give a little bit of an overview, you should be seeing a photo right now, and I'm seeing Joe nodding his head, good, of an aerial view of Wolf Ridge. So this is our campus here, all of our campus buildings. I'm down in the building in the far right corner in the Science Center there, and Joe and Peter would be out along the shore of Lake Superior today that you see out there on the horizon. Hi, Joe. Yeah, waving back, very fun. So we're fortunate to be pretty close to Lake Superior and our campus in general, but then also be able to visit Lake Superior now. But a lot of our worlds are impacted by this lake, whether that we're physically on it or not. Living up here constantly means Lake Superior is a part of our world. One of my favorite ways is that we don't have air conditioning up here because Lake Superior is the air conditioning. But one of my favorite moments on Lake Superior itself for me is this photo here of the frozen forest and my mom and I. So the mist from Lake Superior, when it comes off and it's really cold outside, it freezes on all the plants and makes this beautiful, magical place to walk through. And so this is just one of the amazing pieces of magic that Lake Superior gets to provide us. So we're all so excited to share that with you today. And without further ado, I think we're being joined by someone on a boat, not a captain. So Peter, where are you at?
We are south of Joe by about 14, 15 miles. We're near Beaver Bay, Minnesota. And my name's Peter, and we are on the Raven. And this boat is mine. I've been fixing it up. And we hope to, when I retire here in the near future, take this boat across the oceans. This kind of boat has traveled. So we look up front, you can see we have one sail going. And the reason why is it's a little windy today. So we just have the jib. The boat will have 3 sails. And the 3 sails are called a jib, a staysail, and a mainsail. And we can use those sails to do different things. So it will be able to sail close to the wind, away from it. And sail power has been around on Lake Superior since the 1700s. So that's pretty awesome. I think I have some other people on the boat here. Over here, we have John Latimer. You want to say hi, John?
Yeah, hello. It's lovely out here today.
And John studies the phenology of nature. So is there something you've noticed out on Lake Superior here that has impressed you?
Well, not so much on the lake, but the land nearby. The phenology is quite a bit different from my hometown, Grand Rapids. So you guys have many asters blooming that I'm not seeing yet, but will come.
And that's probably due to the temperature difference.
Right. Yeah.
Cool. And then, we haven't seen you in a long time. Who are you?
My name's Moose Johnson.
Moose. And Moose, I think the last time I saw you was about maybe 5 years ago. Where have you been?
I've been traveling the world. Got this new flannel in my adventures. Doing a little lumberjacking.
Okay, and I didn't know you were going to be on the boat. Why are you here?
I was a stowaway.
A stowaway?
Wow.
Oh,
I was a stowaway.
We need to find a job for you. How about if you become the admiral? Are you up for that?
Oh, I'm always ready for a new adventure, Peter.
Okay. And I hear you're a comedian. Do you have any boat jokes to tell us?
I do. So the other day I was on my own boat and I heard the anchor rope talking to me and I asked, "Are you a person now?" And it said, "No, I'm afraid not."
That's pretty good. Well, you know what? I can give you a little tour, but I wanted to let you know about the water temperature here. We just measured the water temperature. About 3 days ago, it was 50. A few days ago, it was, 49 degrees. Woo! And it was on the chilly side. A week before that, it was almost 69 degrees at the surface and went down about 50 feet until you got below the 50s. And then we had this cooling happen a little bit, and now the temperature had been down in the 40s and it's back up. So right now it's right around 60 degrees. And Moose, do you remember what the temperature on the air was? I think you measured the water temperature or the air temperature.
It's about 63.8. Ah!
Danielle, what's the temperature up at Wolf Ridge? Do you have an idea? Is it warmer than that temperature? What was it?
63.
63?
It was actually 63 when I took the weather reading this morning.
So that's interesting. Do you know which way the wind is blowing?
Northeast.
So that's blowing Lake Superior air toward you. So you're having an air conditioning. I bet if we talk to someone farther away, we'd find out that things are a lot colder or a lot warmer away. So Lake Superior, like you said, is a major heater. We've also had waves, so maybe we can see some of the waves that are out there. They're only about 3 feet, but when we turn into them, things really start to bounce. And those waves, Moose, what's the biggest waves you've seen on Lake Superior?
I think I've seen about waves 20 feet, but I hear they can get even bigger.
All right. This boat can pretty safely sail in 10-foot wedging, but it's meant to the boat. And then I think we're going to find out about what's happening with things on the shoreline here. So let me get the hatch open. This boat is like a house. So you can go out traveling for weeks and months if you're not familiar with a cruising boat. You have to get down. Whoa, my safety line, excuse me. We have jack line. Sailors use this so you don't fall overboard. And flip it here. There we go. So when the waves get really big, you need to have safety line on. And this cable is attached, or this line is attached to a carabiner, like in the climbing walls, maybe you've seen, and then attached to another line on deck. So people once in a while have that. We have all sorts of, the water can be awful cold to be safe. Let's come on down here and I'll show you briefly what a cruising boat might have. I have a stove and an oven. The oven's on a gimbal, so if we're out in waves like this, you can get it so it balances, so your hot dish doesn't there. I haven't hooked up fixing this boat. I haven't hooked up the water, but we carry about 100 gallons of fresh water I could pump with a foot. So I'm taking all the electrical stuff that I can out of the boat and making it so it's manual. We have kind of claws that come up to keep you falling off. So when you're heeled over like this, it's so cool, and you don't fall out of your sleeping area. We can sleep 5 people in this. We have a radio over here for safety and a bunch of other safety things. We also have storage that we can have in here. One of the most important things you always want to have in a motel room or something you're traveling is going to the bathroom. And sailors call that the head. The short story is that people would go to the head of the boat to go to the bathroom in the old days. So the toilet is down here in this spot. In here, you have to kind of grip your knees to get in there, but it still works. And the cool thing is, that's the second here. The cool thing is that our toilet that we just installed is a composting toilet. And so we don't end up putting a lot of chemicals in the water. We end up making some dirt that we can take the waste and then put it in a garden after a season. So that's the short of the boat. It's meant to sail. It also has an engine. So unfortunately, we just sometimes going into ports, we need that power. So I wonder if we can go back to Joe on land.
Yeah, thank you, Peter. We'll come back to you later and see where y'all are at.
Great. We'll see you in a bit.
Absolutely. So my name is Joe, and I'm out here on the shoreline. And this is the shoreline that Tom Berg was talking about. And so you can see behind me all of this rock, and that it looks like there's virtually nothing growing here. You can also see the waves crashing right there along the shore. And I can appreciate why maybe Peter isn't out there sailing. We were hopeful that he would literally be offshore so that I could point him out to you. Not going to happen today. But the thing is that this space right here is influenced both by what's happening now, as well as what happened a billion years ago. So Danielle, I'd love it if you could share those slides. I want to be able to zoom out both in space and time for a moment to be able to give people a sense of what's going on here.
Absolutely.
So the first thing that I want to point out is that one of my botanical mentors told me that if I was looking for rare things or really interesting stuff, the first thing that I needed to do was to look at the landscape on a grand scale and try to find things that really stood out. So what was unique on that landscape? And as you look at North America, I kind of think the Great Lakes are unique on the landscape, right? And then within that, you're supposed to look at that and find out what's unique about that. Well, clearly Superior is unique in that. And then as you get a little bit closer, you want to find out what's unique on that. And that's where we end up here on this rocky shoreline, because this really stands out as something unique in this space. And what I'll do eventually is I want to take you to a place that's even smaller and smaller. And I want to share it with you because I believe that is something that we should all know about so that we can protect it. But how did these Great Lakes get here? So you can go to the next slide, Danielle. You see that we've got these 5 Great Lakes, that they're here partly because of volcanism and because of glaciers. You can go to the next one. Oh, and there's the North Shore. I forgot what I put on here, that I'm going to focus just on the North Shore and the volcanism and the glaciers in this area. And then you can go to the next one. That if I took a cross section of where I'm at right now, that I'm near the water, okay? And so on the right-hand side, you see that BR, that bedrock ridge, I'm generally in that spot. But then if you look, this cross section, there's another BR that's over to the left. And that is where Wolf Ridge is. That's where Danielle is. And that's a bedrock ridge as well. This bedrock that we have here also has other rock that's in it. I happen to be standing on basalt, which is a volcanic rock, the same type of rock that is flowing out in Hawaii right now. And so as we look at this is just a very old Hawaii in a sense, the way the geology is. You can go further to the next one. And that we have some big flows as well. That if you go to Tectonics State Park, that it's not basalt there, but it's rhyolite, and especially Shovel Point and Palisade Head, a different type of a rock that's there. That's unique. But I'm over here on this basalt, so you can go ahead. And this all happened a very long time ago. Plate tectonics is important to understand that we have these big plates that are shifting around on the planet, have been all the time, and on the edges are where you start to find some volcanism. But we're in the middle of the North American plate. How in the world do we have volcanism here? Well, it turns out that at one point, 1.1 billion years ago, the North American plate started to crack. Go to the next one. And from essentially Kansas up through Lake Superior, where it is now, and then down through Michigan, that little spot right there was the mid-continent rift. It started to spread apart, and lava was flowing out of here. Different types of lava at different rates and different places around here. You can go to the next one. But on the entire North America, if you look at it, and remember that botanist told me to look at things that stand out, that are unique. Look at that curve right there, 1.1 billion years ago, what they refer to as the Keweenaw Rift or the Mid-Continent Rift. That's unique. This is where we have some really interesting things, and it's because of the geology. I think you can go one more further. Because then what happened was after all of that, glaciers came in, several different versions of these glaciers. And it was about 10,000 years ago that glaciers essentially left. And so this rock that I'm standing on was either covered by high water or glaciers for a very long time. But essentially 10,000 years ago, it was at the surface. And what I'd like to do is take you for a little walk. And that's where Danielle gets to give it back to me now. So let's see, it has been a while, Danielle. There we go. I wanted to be able to show you that even though behind me, it looks like nothing is growing. Look at that. That rock right there, there are lichens all over it. And those lichens, some of them maybe started growing here 10,000, thousands of years ago, possibly, maybe not. you know, because the rock has been eroding, both because of the ice that's on the shore and just a variety of other things. But I want to take you on a little bit of a walk. As we go, we can see that there's not a lot growing here until we start to look closer. And as we look closer, walking on this rock seems not going to hurt any of the vegetation around here. And perhaps in some respects that's true. But there are certain places that are very, very fragile. And so the fact that WolfRidge has this property now is really exciting to be able to teach people about it, but it's kind of sobering as well, because we have a responsibility to this landscape to protect it, to make sure that we don't damage it. And all of these lichens that I'm walking on, well, they're pretty tough. They survive winters, but they haven't had to survive people walking on it. So of course, as WolfRidge plans what we're going to do, we're going to think critically about where we take people, especially as we come across these little wet pools like this, these raised pools. Well, these places are sort of like oh my goodness, it just skipped my brain right there. The tide pools, they're sort of like the tide pools in the ocean, the places where amazing things live. And as we get down here, well, it's not quite as windy anymore. It's protected a little bit. And the water that's here, it comes a little bit from the spray from the waves, but we're up a little ways. And so it's not so much that. It's probably mostly from rainwater. And as you look back over here, you can see that the rock slopes down here. And so it's this other water that's going through some of that acidic vegetation. And it comes down here and it's very acidic. So as we come here and look at these little plots of plants right here, this is the place that WolfRidge really wants to protect. We need to make sure that we don't bring very many people here. And so this is a great opportunity for me to bring, what, 100 people here, Danielle? I think that's how many you said we possibly have here. And so I can bring 100 people here without damaging it. And what I encourage everybody as you're exploring the North Shore, if you come across these spots that have these little pools and some plants, don't stand on the plants. Stand back, give it some space. I'm going to show you what you can look for, though, if you get right to the edge. So as we get right in here.
Joe, it looks like we froze a little bit. Can you hear us?
Oh, can you see me again?
Yep, now we got you again.
Excellent. What I want to do is I want to take the camera down again and to look at some of the vegetation that's here that's really amazing. We have a little plant down here that is a carnivorous plant. I want to share with you.
Joe, I think the carnivorous plant is trying to eat the phone.
I'm guessing Joe, oh, he's going for a sundew. It was that for those that can't hear Joe, what you saw a little glimpse of, that sort of reddish plant with little dewdrops on the tendrils at the end, is a plant called a sundew. Joe, you're back.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, it seems like my phone is having some problems as I get down here in the rocks and I'm not having as good a connection. But that's exactly what we had, is the sundew. We also have some other plants like butterwort, some carnivorous plants that are down here. The point is that as you're exploring the North Shore, be very, very careful around these spots and give them their space, but also get in there and look at it a little bit so that you can appreciate it. This is all affected by the weather, and that this also does affect the weather. And I want to pass it back to Peter Harris. Hopefully he has a better connection than I do right now.
And while we pass back to Peter Harris, I pulled up a picture of the sundew real quick to share with everybody.
Oh, thank you.
Because they're really quite remarkable. So if you can see right now, these plants are tiny. They're like the size of my pinky fingernail. And they have these beautiful little tendrils on them with kind of sticky dew on the outside. And the dew is where they capture things. And when they capture bugs, the nutrients break down, and that's what the plant is actually absorbing. So this plant wouldn't eat the phone in its entirety, but it might make it a little bit sticky. So I just really wanted to share that with you all. This was one of the most special plants I learned about when I first came to WolfRidge in 2013. So I'll stop sharing now and see where we're at with Peter and the boat. I think I heard some voices.
Hello. Hi, Danielle. Well, that was great to hear and see what Joe was looking at along the cliff sides. And as I look in towards the cliffs, I can see water hitting those cliffs and bouncing up, and that interaction between the water and the geology is really important. And
Hey,
it's
Peter.
amazing. Yes.
I gotta pause you for a moment because you're all tilty sideways.
Tilty sideways.
Yeah,
There.
there you
Is that
go.
better?
Yes.
Okay. Maybe we're going to try flipping it one more time, see if I flip right. Did that work or not?
There, now you shook it out. Sometimes the Zoom has to give, you gave it a little shake. You're all
Okay.
set.
Oh, got a little wet there, but I'm okay. Now, as we look towards the shoreline, we're by Beaver Bay, if people are familiar. And this part of the shore is kind of cool because we have lots of cliffs, and if 3-foot waves are kind of taking us around you, you can probably, hopefully nobody gets sick. There's Dramamine in your kitchen. But those shoreline is cliffy along the North Shore, just like where Joe was. And that interaction is super important of that wave breaking that cliff away. When I look at our depth meter here, it's showing 140 feet right at this spot. I can go out another quarter mile and it drops to almost 300 feet in some spots. So imagine 300 feet is enormous, considering from the shoreline up to Wolf Ridge, which is, I think, about 3 miles. Is that right, Danielle?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's say 3 miles. We climb 600 feet, and within 1/8 of a mile in the lake here, the bottom is dropping off on us just like faster than you can imagine. So where we see the cliffs in there, they don't really stop here. It's a very fast drop. And that's partly why we can get such large volume in here, is all that lava sank down. It's called a syncline. And we have this big pool here. The other cool thing is we look out, the wind is moving the water. And one of the things that we know in this lake is that there's currents. They figured this out in the 1800s. People put, they're out in the boats and they're kind of bored. What am I going to do? I think there were scientists too. But anyway, they put notes in bottles and they made note where the bottle was dropped. People were able to figure out that there was a current that comes from over on that side of the lake, which would be in Wisconsin. Or I'm sorry, the current goes from this side of the lake over to Wisconsin, and then it splits in two. Part of it heads down towards Duluth, and part of it heads towards the upper peninsula of Michigan. And then it circles around in Duluth and comes up the North Shore again to Beaver Bay, Silver Bay, and goes out. And the stuff that goes in the UP kind of goes up to Canada and around. So it's a figure 8 circle. We also have currents that kind of come up. Well, just like there's complexities that are just starting to be understood in the water of Lake Superior, the air above it is still a mystery. In fact, the meteorologists are starting to classify things that they didn't know really existed, storm systems and uniqueness. As we look towards those hills over there, those hills and our water temperature of the lake can really cause some cool things to happen on Lake Superior. And see if I can briefly describe them. So people cut me off because I get so enthusiastic about the weather that make sure that I don't go over. To make a cloud, we need to bring warm and cold air together. And that can make a cloud that we see up in the atmosphere or the fog that we have on the lake today, which is starting to clear away. And when that cold air cools the water vapor or gas to a point, it's going to condense into very small little droplets. So fog and the clouds up there. The fog we had is called advection fog. What it was warm air coming down from the inland part and the wind blowing it, and it hit that cooler water. And when that happened, voila, fog forms. Usually, sometimes it can stay a day or more. So as the temperature changes on land, we some have differences there. But wind doesn't necessarily blow the advection fog away. We mentioned that the Lake Superior cools the air during the summertime. In fact, at my house, which is right on the shore, sometimes when I leave my house in May, say at lunchtime, I can find that the temperature is like literally 38 degrees in May in my house. I get up to Wolf Ridge and it's been in the high 80s. Amazing. Like 3 mile straight line away, and we have between upper 30s to the 80s. So the lake is a bit cooler in the summertime, and we find the same effect in the wintertime. One of the times that Lake Superior is known for is the gales of November. A low pressure system, or when you start to have rain, is a system that pulls warm and cold air together, and it can be from hundreds of miles away. So when you see that L coming towards you on the weather map, what it really is this sucker bringing warm and cold air together to make clouds and to make wind. So cold air also makes wind, or cold air and warm air when they collide. These low pressure systems in November and late October, they come out on the lake, they're pretty cold, and the lake is relatively warm because it's been warmed up all summer. And it's like supercharging these low pressure systems, and those winds get really big. And so when we have those big winds and the big 20+ foot waves on Lake Superior, the gales of November, it's because of supercharged low pressure systems. The last thing I'm going to mention is that the elevation change here, when we have usually storms coming in, the wind on the surface is from the east in the direction that it's coming right now. And when that warm air with the moisture forming the clouds comes and rises over these cliffs, those cliffs cause it to rise a little more, cool more, and it squeezes more water into the vapor state or into the liquid state, and therefore more rain and snow. We call that lake enhancement, and that's the air pushing over the cliffs. Wolf Ridge can have feet and feet of snow, and right along the edge at our new property, we might only have 6 inches of snow. So a lot more precipitation, and also sometimes it falls as rain early on. So big differences in snow. The last thing people ask me about, well, does Lake Superior on this shoreline create lake effect? And we do have lake effect. One thing that's known for is the snow depths. And the reason why we don't have as much is all the wind coming here, or the fetch, has to come from either Wisconsin, which is under 30 miles at the islands, sometimes from Michigan, and that could be hundreds of miles, or from the North Shore, or from Duluth. But so we have a narrow little angle where we can get winds that are traveling like 40, 50, 60 miles. You need that to have a lake effect storm. The other things you need is a slight twist in the wind angle between the surface and up in the air, and then also a change in the temperature between the surface and the air. Put all those 3 things together, and we can get a mini low pressure system that'll dump feet of snow. Upper peninsula of Michigan over here, it sticks out into the lake, and it can have wind coming from all sorts of directions, and it's going to drop a ton of snow. So we don't have that many lake effect storms, but we do get lake enhanced storms. I just want to quickly pass it over to John here, because John is a person that studies, like I said, the phenology of things. And is there something that sticks out to you about in Minnesota, kind of going from Lake Superior to the prairies, John, as far as affecting the timing of nature?
Well, it's odd. I haven't a lot of experience here in the North Shore, but there seems to be, it seems to come southwest to northeast spring.
When what comes there?
The advancement of, like, let's take the aspens leafing out.
Okay.
So typically the aspens leaf out at my house around the 29th of April or the 1st of May. And I suspect that you probably don't see it till the 10th of May. Or
yes,
it's
much later. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the temperature is cooler here. And so a lot of times the phenology inland is going to be a lot later for here. Temperature controls a lot of things, not birds migrating long distances, but leaf out, flowering, and stuff like that. Are we short on time, or how are we doing?
Well, we're doing great on time. In a few minutes, I'll open it up for questions from the audience. I'm grabbing a couple in the chat already. So if you all have any questions, you can either dump them into the chat for Joe or Peter, or myself, and we'll get to start answering some of your questions in a few minutes. But Peter, go ahead.
Okay, I thought if we can look up towards the jib here, So right now the wind is pushing us and we are traveling at about 4 knots. A knot is like a little over 1 mile an hour. And the reason that people on boats use knots is that they actually measured that by dropping a line with knots on it and measuring it in the early days. And like I say, sailing goes back a long time. Probably the Anishinaabe on their canoes would use, you know, some sort of sail. The voyageurs, when they came in, they used sails. And I just came back from a trip from Sault Ste. Marie, and we had to go down into the St. Mary's River, which is a drop of about 60 feet. So they need locks. And this is what I was amazed to find out. The first locks on Lake Superior were actually built for the largest Voyager canoes. And so when you come to Wolf Ridge, you'll sometimes go out on our big canoe, which is a Montreal canoe. Those are what they would use on the Great Lakes on these waves, and they could transport furs. Well, they built a lock to lower and to raise the water level so they didn't have to haul everything online back in the fur trade area in the 1700s. Pretty cool. Now they have these huge boats, many football field lengths in size, that are going through new locks there. So I just wanted to mention that Lake Superior is a major transport and has been for lots of goods.
Wow, thank you, Peter. And I have a few questions in the chat that we'll start with. So a couple from Lillian, and both I think will be for Peter and your crew. First is about the boat itself and the composting toilet. Is that something that's standard in boats, or is that something you've added?
You know what? It's like all things with sustainability. People are adding compost toilets to their house, especially out in the woods where you don't have a plumbing or a septic system. And Wolf Ridge actually has 2 composting toilets. We were kind of a leader in that. So people on boats are getting them more and more. And the nice part is when you use those chemicals you have to use in a regular kind of head is what it's called on a boat, it's stinky. The composting toilet will have a fan, so it's always getting air. It has peat down in there, and it's not stinky. I have a lot of friends that have them, and they love them.
Cool. And then Peter, another one for you. So Lillian asks, will the change in the Gulf Stream affect Lake Superior?
Maybe not directly, but if the Gulf Stream changes, that could have a huge impact on things like the jet stream in the atmosphere. As we get these massive amounts of water changing temperature. And if the jet stream and some of the upper winds change, that will affect our climate. So that's kind of the feedback loop for that story.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. And then one question here, Pete Smerod, this seems like a good one for you. What are the long range plans for the new property?
Thanks, Danielle. That I think everyone who's been to Wolf Ridge knows you drive up the shoreline, the kids have their windows, their faces pasted to the windows looking at the lake. And for years, at the last minute, they turn and head up to the top of Wolf Ridge and they leave the lake. And we've taught about the lake, we've looked at the lake, we've told stories of the lake for decades, and now we have an opportunity to get children to the lake. Tom Berg mentioned the magnetism that, sorry, I had to start my video. Thanks, Danielle. That Tom Berg mentioned the magnetism of the lake. Anyone who's been there knows that. You can feel that. And we really feel that as stewards of Lake Superior, as Minnesotans, that we have a responsibility. And we have a responsibility on a global level. 10% of the world's surface fresh water sits in that one lake. Lake Superior holds the same amount of water as the other 4 lakes combined. And that we want to get children there. Our long range view is not to duplicate another Wolf Ridge down in the shoreline. Absolutely not. You heard Joe and Danielle mentioning a 100-person limit. We've set with the landowner a 100-person limit. We are going to walk and travel and learn on that land differently than we do up at Wolf Ridge, because it is different land. As Joe described, it's a distinct feature that we need to really be thoughtful about how we engage ourselves down there. And so the long range plan is really to do day use experiences down there, and that we could camp down there And the students could hike from Wolf Ridge down to there. It's about 7.5 miles, and to spend time at the shoreline learning, but also feeling the impact of that, and to take that home with them. That as the world struggles with issues of fresh water, we in Minnesota take things a bit for granted, and that we need to really make sure that as global citizens, we can focus on the fact that we are upholding our responsibility to the others with Lake Superior, and thoughtful care of Lake Superior. And so that the kids will experience it, learn plants, geology, rocks that are there, and why the land is the way it is, the distinct features that Joe described, places that we go to learn and places we don't go. And both of those will be really important. I think that's enough.
Thank you. And we have so many good questions here, and about 5 more minutes for questions, but just know if we don't get to any of them, you're welcome to keep typing them in, because we can save them in the chat and get to you. So this next one, Joe, I think would be a good one for you. So the question is from Lyndon. Hi, Lyndon. How does what you do at Wolf Ridge and other places in the Lake Superior watershed affect Lake Superior? Oh, and it's from Lawson. Sorry, Lawson. Hi, Lawson.
Yeah, so the headwaters back there where Lawson and Linden are in the Isabella area, that is where a lot of the rain falls, and it starts to flow across the highlands where Wolf Ridge is. And so clearly anything that we're doing on that landscape is going to flow into those watersheds that are going through, especially the Baptism River through the Wolf Ridge main campus. And then it ends up cutting through all of that, goes to the near shore, which is generally where Highway 61 is, and eventually pours right out into Lake Superior, right? So anything that we do affects that. If we put salt on our roads, that affects that, right? It affects the frogs and toads and other things that are living in the water as well. And it affects the water quality. One of the things that I'm not certain that was really part of Lawson's question is that I also believe that the plants that are here, the organisms that are living here on this property, that this is a spot where they can essentially breed and then spread out to other places. And so I think that Wolf Ridge has a great responsibility to protect this space and make sure that invasive species don't get in here, and that we protect it as a seed source for other places that may have been damaged. And so I think that just as much as we can do damage to the landscape, we can also do something that actually helps the landscape.
And Joe, Janet says, I thought sundews were only warm swamp plants. How do they survive on the North Shore?
I have the same question. How does that work? Oh my gosh, right? and that what I've noticed is that there are all kinds of wetland plants that are growing in here, and we're near a wetland, right? But the wetlands that I'm thinking of are the wetlands that are up in Isabella, up in the headwaters. And so I'm seeing leatherleaf down here, and Labrador tea, even a variety of things I would expect in bogs and fens. Frankly, I don't know the answer, and I love that mystery. I love the fact that it just baffles us, and we get to see it anyway and enjoy that.
That's great. And then Karen notices that sometimes along Lake Superior, there are signs that say not for sale. What does that mean? And then a follow-up of, are we in jeopardy of losing this amazing resource? And I'll open that up to any of you. Pete, go ahead.
I can take that. Karen, that means just what you see the sign to state. And it has happened many times over many years that there have been proposals from around the country, and there have been proposals from around the world to sell or to purchase Lake Superior water. It has occurred in the Canadian government was approached to take tankerfuls, large shipfuls of fresh water to take them to the Middle East. It has occurred, the discussion has occurred within our own country. About 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, the Minneapolis Star-Tribune published an article entitled The Great Siphoning. And the article focused upon the fact that an engineer had done the math that if we built a pipeline to feed water to the people of the desert Southwest, we'd need to get that pipeline from Duluth to the Green River in Wyoming. And if we did that, Utah, into Utah, if we did that, then we could start to refill the dwindling water pools and resources of the dams and the lakes in the desert Southwest and the Colorado River, where people are struggling with water issues. And imagine, that seems like a great distance. And yet when you look at the pipeline that goes from the North Slope of Alaska down to Valdez, that is a very similar distance to go from Duluth into central Utah. And so while that seems outrageous when one may think about it, there's nothing more valuable than water. Oil is valuable, but there's nothing more valuable than water. And so what will the future of the Great Lakes be? That not for sale sign is someone expressing the opinion is, no, I'm not okay with that. And we need to protect it. And that really is something we bring up with children. And we ask children, what do you think? And it's great. 12-year-olds can be brutally honest. And you'll see someone jump up and say, well, yeah, we should share the water. And someone else says, absolutely not. No, they can't do that. When would it stop? And then another 12-year-old may say, well, if they don't have water, do we want all those people to move up here? Oh, I'm not sure I want that either. It is wonderful to engage in those sorts of stories with children because they will be the ones making those decisions, truly.
Thank you. And we just have two quick questions here, and then I'll pass it back to you, Pete, to close us out. One question from Donette is, have you been able to contribute to your grad program during the pandemic? I'll take that one. Joe and I run our graduate program, and we took a year off from having active students here, but we're still very much a part of all of our alumni's life, and we will be welcoming a big group of them in just a few weeks. So we are still going strong with the graduate program and really excited to see some new faces soon. And then lastly, are we in the Boreal range? As I understand it, we're on the southern edge of the Boreal forest. Joe, would you add to that?
Yeah, I think that we start to dip into that more when we get into Isabella. And I think of in between Isabella and Ely, that there's a little spot right in there that there's a bunch of jack pine, and it really changes. That's what I think about that. And there's just different types of zones. I think that the best resource to be able to learn about that is if you look up the book called North Shore by Chell Anderson and look in there and read it. You'll get a much more thorough answer. She's the person I would go to ask anyway. All right, look at that. There we go.
An amazing resource. Okay, everybody, I'm gonna save any other questions that come in here and pass it back to Pete to close us out.
Thank you, Danielle. And I think in closing, Riwa commented in the chat that she loves that there are places like Wolf Ridge that are having these open discussions with youth. And as I stated, they were making the discussions. And I know Riwa, in this case, has family that live up here on the North Shore, and she spends time here. And the one thing we know at Wolf Ridge is that what happens at Wolf Ridge has been described almost like enlightenment, where inspiration meets knowledge, and that people come to Wolf Ridge to learn, but they also come to be inspired, and they come to be touched by something. They come to feel it in their heart as well as gain the knowledge in their brain. And that really is about what our mission is in the world, is to develop that citizenry and develop a citizenry that isn't just thinking about my own backyard. They have that sense of place and understanding, but I also know, like, for example, Riwa, someone that's lived around the world, that focusing on Lake Superior is taking our own local sense of place and our own local connections that way to heart, but it is also putting on that global scale that fresh water, we can't make for more water. It runs through a cycle, and that cycle continues and continues. And yet, if we screw it up with Lake Superior, I think I'm going to leave you with this idea. If you're old enough, you remember the days of Lake Erie, when Lake Erie was caught on fire. And there was so many toxic chemicals in Lake Erie that it actually caught on fire. And we as humans learned from our mistake, and we went and fixed it, and we cleaned up Lake Erie. And we cleaned up Lake Erie moderately easily because Lake Erie flushes itself out. In other words, it replaces all of its water in about a 3-year time span. That rate of flush on Lake Superior is 191 years. And so if we make mistakes with our fresh water in some places of the globe, those distinct features that Joe talked about, at Lake Superior, it's going to take a very long time. And so we need to use trusted institutions like Wolf Ridge to help move all of us, move our citizenry a few steps further up to a greater level of understanding to help in our decision making. And so I'm going to pass it to one more person who's going to ask a bit of a question here, because I'm grateful to everyone here. And thank you to Danielle and to Joe and to Peter and the crew out there, John and Moose Johnson, that joined us today. And again, thank you to Fortune Financial and North Star Resource Group for our sponsorship. But I'm going to let Russ Bierbaum finish this off. Russ is the chair of the board at Wolf Ridge. And Russ has a question for all of you. Oh, Russ, you're muted. You got to hit your mute button.
Thank you. Thank you, Pete. I've been looking forward to this presentation for quite some time. The Board of Trustees had a meeting on not quite a month ago, in July 23rd and 24th. We brought the entire board that was present down to our property on Lake Superior. We have a recently completed viewing deck, which is fantastic. I would invite all of you to come up to Lake Superior when convenient and to call Wolf Ridge and make arrangements to have somebody in the staff come down and show you around the property. Seeing the property on video is better than not seeing it, but being there in person is even much better. And I think you'll understand the excitement that we all have about having a presence on Lake Superior. It's been the dream of a lot of us to get down there. We're there. We have access to bring kids down. We are not done with the project down there. We need to figure out at some point how we build a small classroom down there on the lake, but we are able to handle students, and we will. Now, the question is, how are we going to stay viable? Is Wolf Ridge going to be around to help teach kids and show kids the importance of Lake Superior and all the associated flora and fauna? We believe so. We're looking good. We're looking forward to what's happening this fall to open up again. But we are also concerned about what might happen to the pandemic and the restrictions that we may have on kids coming to Wolf Ridge. We don't know. We need your support. We need to have you continue supporting Wolf Ridge so that we can weather adversity in the future and we can keep promoting our great institution and have kids continue to come and learn from all of this. So the real question is, can you give us some help financially? That's what we need. And we appreciate everything all of you have done in the past, very, very much so. And I will encourage you to come up and look at this beautiful land on Lake Superior where Joe is sitting. Joe gave us a lecture at the board meeting when we went down there about some of the same things you talked about today. See it in person makes a big difference. So I would encourage you to come up and visit the land and also the main campus for that matter as well. So I'll leave you with that. Thank you very much for attending. It's been great having this many people join us. And I honestly, when I was told that Peter Harris was going to join us on water, I thought, okay, that's really cool. How's that going to happen? Well, it did happen. And Peter, thank you very much. Joe, Danielle, and Pete, and Tom Berg, thank you for your comments at the start of the program.